the downpour definitely. Yeah, you could argue that it actually hurt Memphis more, but Memphis is a great running team as well. They're actually the number one running team in all of college football. So the downpour, it just affected the total for sure in that game. Would it go to 81? And it ended up at 61 in a very close game. West Virginia losing to Iowa State outright. Iowa State came in black, and they played like the better team. Iowa State had 498 yards to 152 from West Virginia. They couldn't do anything. West Virginia couldn't even have the ball, really. 37 minutes of possession for Iowa State to 22 minutes for West Virginia. That is a huge discrepancy there. That's where you see why they couldn't get the ball. Only had 15 attempts passing. 27 attempts rushing, while Iowa State had 47. Time of possession, if you can run the football and get first downs in 3 plays consistently, you should have no problem winning the game. That's where rushing comes in, and it's hard to handicap that because a lot of people just go at yards per play, but you have to see about the rushing because the rushing and the game plan in many cases will change everything. Slows the game down, points go down, you take away the passing game. Similar to how Texas beat Oklahoma too. It's just a way to handicap some of these games. Got to favor those big rushing teams if they can control the ball, especially at home. All right. I think we have one more. Washington. That's right. Washington lost outright. That's not good. Yeah, they're out of the playoffs now. They lost to Oregon, and it went into overtime. Oregon was able to take care of business. Washington had a crucial 4th down on like the 35-yard line in the 4th, and they went for it and didn't get it. I thought that was a huge mistake there. I would have took the points or punted it, but it was like, I think it was like a 4th and 5 too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a huge mistake. Oregon passed for 202 yards, Washington 243. Washington had a pick. The rushing yards were pretty close. It was a really great game, but Oregon had this one circled. I still think Washington is a better team, but Oregon now is in a letdown spot for next week. So, the reason we're calling this episode The Flatlands is because this week is full of flatness. Tons of buys this week. No big games. The biggest game, literally, is NC State at Clemson. Okay? That's the biggest game. NC State at Clemson. So you know that there's not a hell of a lot going on this week. As a matter of fact, the Big 12, there's only 4 teams not on a bye. And I think this week is kind of the week that, teams, they're tired. Some of them that aren't on a bye wish they were on a bye. They just kind of want to get through to the next week. They're a little bit fatigued from playing every week, banged up and injured. This is a week to favor the dogs. And you're going to see that in our next podcast when we make some of our picks. Might have another great handicapper, Kyle Hunter, on our next podcast. So I look forward to that. And then you'll kind of see, some of the angles that I take and some of the angles that Kyle takes. So this week is very flat, nothing too exciting. As a matter of fact, if you're going to take a week off of not watching a lot of college football, it'd probably be this one. But I don't do that because, I love it so much. Let's get right into the letdown spots. Michigan at Michigan State. It's kind of a letdown spot for both. So I guess you favor the under. Thing came out at 45 points, though, so that's pretty low. I think that's even a little bit too low for my blood unless I check the weather. So, both teams played great last week, and now they face each other again. Michigan State opened at plus 7.5. Now it's highly juiced, so sharp money came on Michigan State. No, well, their defense is definitely better than Wisconsin's this year. Just look at the numbers. LSU hosting Mississippi State's a letdown spot. Central Florida at East Carolina is a letdown spot. They beat Memphis, and that was kind of their rival. Oregon at Washington State. Big letdown spot for Oregon after that Washington game, and now they got to go to Pullman. Wow. USC at Utah. USC took care of business last week against Colorado, who was undefeated. So this is kind of a letdown spot for them. Virginia at Duke. Virginia upset Miami. Big name Miami. This is definitely a letdown spot. Alabama versus Tennessee is kind of a flat spot. Now, Alabama's got a bye week next week, but I think they want to get out of this one healthy. So it's not exactly a letdown spot by any means. I mean, Alabama beat Missouri pretty handily, but Missouri played well, but I just don't think they need to destroy Tennessee in any means. So I'm going to be looking at that line. Here's some get-up spots. We got Oklahoma at TCU. Oklahoma coming after a bye week and a loss. They get a loss, bye week to think about it, and now they get to go play at TCU. Watch out. Nebraska hosting Minnesota. They're still looking for their first win. Some sharp money came on Minnesota, just to warn you, but I don't know. Tough to take the Gophers against a very motivated and improving Nebraska team. That we were on the wrong side of, by the way, but we did hit the over, thank God. Colorado versus Washington. Colorado needs to get up, and you know what? They can. They only have one loss still in the Pac-12, so they're very much in this thing. They have some motivation here against Washington, who it should be crushed by the college football playoff defeat. They are out of that. Here's some look-ahead spots, and not a ton, like I said, because a lot of bye weeks this week. Both Florida and Georgia have byes. You wish that they didn't, because this would be perfect, spots to bet them. Georgia would be kind of a get-up spot. Be looking at them for next week, and Florida would be kind of possibly a letdown spot. Vanderbilt's not that great, but just wanted to mention that. Another couple big SEC teams with byes. South Florida could be looking past UConn here to Houston. Now, UConn sucks, and I don't know how the hell you can bet UConn, but the spread is in the 30s, okay? It's in the 30s. And South Florida is a decent, pretty decent team. They keep winning. They keep rolling somehow. Don't know how, but they do. Florida State looking past Wake Forest to Clemson. That's very possible right there. Florida State wants to embarrass Clemson. Of course, they shouldn't be looking at past anybody the way they have been playing this year, but this is a true look-ahead spot because Clemson is their biggest rival at this point. Well, the best team in the ACC. Syracuse looking past North Carolina to NC State. All right, now we're going to quick go through the Big Ten power ratings before we get to fantasy football. Week 8. Well, Ohio State, I actually downgraded them a little bit. They should have played a lot better against the Gophers. That game was in question late in the fourth quarter. They seem to kind of hit a flat spot. They're better than this, but just a half point. They're still the best team in the Big Ten by far. They're 25.5. And Michigan pulls ahead of Penn State, and they are 19.5. I'm still lower than ESPN and team rankings. They're at about 22. But the way Michigan's playing, they're looking pretty hot right now. Penn State is down to 19 from 20. That awful defeat against Michigan State. I think the Joe Moorhead effect has hit them. Wisconsin, I took down from 15 to 14. ESPN has them at 13.8. Team rankings at 13.5. And their power, Wisconsin, I'm not even sure if that 14 is right. It might even be a 13. Iowa I have at 13.5 and Michigan State at 13.5. Both teams upgraded here a little bit. Maryland at 8. I still am higher than on Maryland. ESPN's caught up a little bit. They're at 5.8. Team rankings at 5.2. Northwestern, I have it at 6.5. Slightly downgraded them. Really, they're a team that should, when they're favored, they're not a good team. But Nebraska played out of their minds too. But they're about a 6.5. Purdue 5.5. There's a big discrepancy here. ESPN has them at 8.9. I don't know how they're so high on them. And then team rankings 8.1. Funny, I was that high on Purdue into the season, and they were low. Now they're a lot higher on Purdue than me. So I think Purdue is a dangerous team, right? But they also still have a very bad defense. Minnesota 4.5 points better than the average team. Slight upgrade from last week. For doing well against Ohio State. Indiana is a 3, slight downgrade. And Nebraska actually, sorry, I should have made this move. Nebraska, I actually have a little bit above Indiana. I moved them up to a 4 from a 2. They're a dangerous team. They're finally getting Scott Frost's offense. Taylor Martinez looks the part. Still a bad defense, but they're very scrappy. I think they're worth 4 points. Better than the average team. And ESPN has them as a minus 1.9, so they're lower on Nebraska than I am. Indiana, I have them at a 3, and ESPN has them at 0.8, so yeah. In Illinois, minus 7.5, and I downgraded them for getting stopped by Purdue at home. It was a letdown spot, kind of, because they went and beat Rutgers and got their first Big Ten win in forever. But they're still terrible. And Rutgers, I downgraded 3 points, and I'm not even as low as the other places. Rutgers losing to Maryland, can't even score points. That is just pathetic. Minus 13, I have them. They're minus 14.8 on ESPN and minus 17.9 on team rankings. Just terrible. Rutgers is probably the 115th worst team out of 130 teams, and there should be some firings that happen this year. They're probably their whole staff, including the athletic director. We'll see. Now, let's get into fantasy football for Week 7 with Dnasty. All right, and we are ready for fantasy football Week 7 with Dnasty. What's up, bud?
Yeah, not much is going on, man.
Wow, your Packers just eked it out, didn't they? Down 7 points with like 4 minutes left. And,
pretty sad against the 49ers.
Oh, you know what's weird about the Packers? They are like terrible for 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden they look like the freaking Patriots at the in the fourth quarter. I don't know what the hell. Well, that's a trained team, though. That's a team that expects to win. And
I remember the fourth quarter against the Bears too. That was quite the fourth quarter against them.
Well, yeah, you got a team that knows how to win, and you got a young team, and it's kind of the same with the Niners, except the Niners don't have a quarterback now. Obviously, Beathard did everything he could. Breda had a great day. I thought he was going to be out, and he actually played, and then all of a sudden the fourth quarter happened, and that they're going to run the ball and try to run the clock. It's stuffed. And then, it's like a storybook with that game. So probably a good live betting opportunity for people whenever Aaron Rodgers is down, by less than a touchdown or less. So, 33 points, and it's a foregone conclusions. Not to mention the refs like to swallow their whistles a little bit at the end. So
last night in the New England Patriot game, not one penalty was called on the Patriots.
That's
figure that one out.
Yeah, that's another team that I always look at. Their offensive line is all of a sudden just the greatest in the world. But that's just the NFL for you. It's something you have to get used to. it spreads a little bit into college too, unfortunately. But you just got to take the good with the bad. That's why the home teams are favored. That's why you give the home teams points. It's whenever I'm trying to decide to start them or sit them in fantasy, I always lean towards the home if they're at home.